Oh, welcome to Rhode Island Pagan Pride Day 2023! Woo! I can't believe that this day actually came. You know, 2019 seems so far away. But we're back. And we're doing this. And we're here. And we're going to keep doing this. Year after year. So I want to welcome everybody to the park. I want everybody to celebrate this day. We've got a lot of guests today. We've got Lynette from the ACLU that's going to be talking a little bit about ACLU. We've got Jenna Green coming up a little later. We've got the dancers opposite me here. That'll be dancing a couple of dances. We've got quite a bit happening, and Steve and Pat Shea are going to be up here doing some rocking us out later. We've got, yep, I think I mentioned Jenna. We've got the workshops happening on the island. And so make sure that we attend those. Get on your phones, call your friends, tell them come on out. The weather's going to be great.
I will, yes.
We've got, I kind of want to acknowledge a few people here. Gail McHugh. She's the founder and high priestess of Horn and Cauldron. Also the co-chair, or coordinator for Rhode Island Pagan Pride. And a lot of what you see today wouldn't be here without her. And so I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you, Gail, for everything you've done. Rachel, wow. You've been on top of everything for us. You know, all these vendors. Rachel has spent many, many hours working on trying to get all the vendors here. Rachel's also been doing our webpage, a lot of the social media. Rachel has been she's had her fingers in a lot of different areas, and we appreciate you so much, Rachel. Thank you. We've got Laureen. Laureen's been working on with Gail on entertainment and workshops and a lot more. And you know, it may seem easy to put on something like this, but a lot of the behind scenes work we try to keep away from everybody, because we want everybody celebrating this day. But these guys have put in hundreds of hours. And these aren't the only ones. We've got other people walking around the park. These were the only three that are currently here. We've got Samara and Pat that are over on the other side. We also have the Horn and Cauldron coming down here. And Horn and Cauldron has been the big backbone for us. They've lightened a lot of our load for us to be able to do this. And so thanks to everybody in Horn and Cauldron for stepping up and being there for us. And thank you. There's so many people to say thanks to for today, but I really want to say thanks to everybody that's here, to all the vendors, all the food trucks, all the presenters, all of the entertainers, and especially all of the people who come out today to celebrate Rhode Island Pagan Pride. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody. I really appreciate it.
And we're supporting the ACLU today.
That's right.
Donations. Yeah.
So today, Rhode Island Pagan Pride every year takes donations for a specific charity or cause. This year we have chosen the ACLU for collecting donations. ACLU has been very, very instrumental in helping Horn and Cauldron. Horn and Cauldron was almost no more because of issues that we had with our town local zoning board. But ACLU came in after we'd been denied our permit and after we'd been told there was no further action we could take. The ACLU said, no, that's not true. They recognized that our rights had been violated, and they stepped up. And they stepped up quickly, and they stepped up hard. And Lynette, I can't thank you enough. You gave us hope from day one. Lynette advised us on how to present ourselves, advised us on, right off the bat, what communication we had. And I'll tell you right off the bat, I happened to have called in on my work computer, and Lynette immediately picked up on that, and she said, Darryl, are you on your work computer? I said, yes. And she goes, get off of it, please. Call in on your phone. So Lynette was right there protecting me from the very beginning, and I can't say thank you enough. I have so much respect for the ACLU. We've always supported the ACLU from a personal side, but never in my life did I ever expect that I would ever need to work with the ACLU for anything. I always took it for granted that my rights, your rights, are protected under the First Amendment and other causes that Lynette will talk about today. But it's not true. Our rights are not always being recognized, and so the ACLU is important. We do want to continue supporting the ACLU, and so I'm going to, what time is it now?
Time to start.
Time for Jeff to introduce Lynette. It's 10:56.
10:56. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. Thanks. And I just want to say, Jeff has been our sound person for several years here for Rhode Island Pagan Pride. Jeff brings in all this equipment, does not charge us for it. It's his gift to us. And I cannot say thank you enough to Jeff for all of the work that he does for us. So thank you very much. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Darryl, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, Rhode Island Pagan Pride 2023. How we feeling? My name is Jeff. I will be your MC for today's Pride. So let's get the festivities started at the main stage. There's a lot of things going on today. A lot of great vendors to see. Make sure you visit all our vendors and maybe take something home, because guess what? They don't want to take the stuff back with them. So the less that you take off their hands, the better they'll appreciate you. So again, say hello to everybody, and I know we're gonna have there's got the food truck happening. We got all kinds of other things. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm gonna set the mic here for Lynette, and she was gonna talk to you. You gonna sit or you gonna stand?
No, I'll stand.
You sure? Okay.
Show me how to fix it if I need to. Okay. Yeah.
Anytime. Okay. There you go.
Hi, everyone.
I'll turn you up.
Is it on?
It's on.
Okay, good. My name is Lynette Labinger. I'm an attorney in Rhode Island, and I work on cases sponsored by the ACLU of Rhode Island. Before that, when I was in private practice, I also did cases for the ACLU, but not exclusively. And I've been working with the ACLU for something like 1,000 years. And I didn't realize that you were dedicating your donations to the ACLU today. I think that's a wonderful thing. I would have been here anyway. So, and I met Gail and Darryl, as Darryl said, over the issue of a zoning restriction in the town of Coventry. And a lot of people don't realize that there are some federal laws that protect religious organizations, even ones that might be, like your home Bible study group. And individuals who are institutionalized in hospitals or prisons from interference with their exercise of sincerely held religious beliefs. And that's what connected me to Horn and Cauldron. And although we were working on it for a while, when we surfaced with the town solicitor of Coventry and said, we're about to file suit, they said, wait a minute, because they were so much in the wrong and had just assumed that they could apply these zoning laws the same to everyone, even though they singled out religious organizations in a way that was harmful. I want to back up a little bit. I've been asked to talk about discrimination on the basis of religion, which is this huge topic, and I am only going to do what I would call skipping stones across the water and hope that you have some questions about things that you actually really care about, because it's a huge topic. And the law is not always settled. If you think back to your, American history studies, you remember that a lot of the people who came to the United States to colonize it were trying to avoid religious persecution back home. And eventually that became the basis for the First Amendment's religion clauses. But in the meantime, you have colonies like Massachusetts Bay, where the Puritans came to escape religious persecution and then turned around and persecuted everybody else, including Roger Williams, who founded Rhode Island just to avoid that. Roger Williams did not, he was very suspicious of all orthodox connections between religion and the government. And anytime the government asked him to stand up and speak and attest to the government, he would always draw the line, because if you're required to do it, then it's not your religious belief, you're just going through the motions. We lose that periodically over the years, it goes back and forth. But when the Constitution was adopted, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment has several parts to it. I'm going to read it to you because it's really short. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's a lot in just one sentence. The first two clauses are the religion clauses. The first one says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Now, over the years, and particularly after the 14th Amendment was adopted after the Civil War, that was expanded to the states, and it basically started out as meaning just at a generic level that there shall be no established religion for the United States, like the Church of England. So that's a very simple concept, but it has grown and contracted and grown and contracted at various times as to what constitutes an establishment of religion. The other one, which I think is probably, and that's, I apologize for those of you who think that the first one is more of interest to you today, is Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof, which is called the Free Exercise Clause, which basically says that Congress, and again, applied to the states and local governments at this point, shall not interfere with individuals in their exercise of religion or their decision not to exercise a religious belief. And there again, the scope of those protections has expanded and contracted in various ways over, I would say, the years, the centuries. But I'm going to tell you a couple things about Rhode Island. I am a transplant to Rhode Island. I got here in the 70s. And when I got here in the 70s, I was renting an apartment on the east side. One of my neighbors was teaching, a public school teacher, teaching public school classes at a parochial school. This is the 1970s. The 1970s, we had a complete interconnection, and eventually, not very long afterwards, it was held unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court in a bunch of cases, including one called the lead case, Lemon versus Kurtzman, which has now been almost completely disavowed in terms of how it analyzed Establishment Clause. I'm not suggesting that you could then go back and do that again, but the analysis has changed over time, so exactly what it means is very unpredictable at any time. At that point, it swung a pendulum so that there was supposed to be an absolute wall between religious institutions and government support, so that if there was some kind of a grant for building to improve a building, some places they said, oh, we can't give that to a religious institution because that would be supporting religion. Well, that's been reversed, and now you can. And then there's some where they say, well, you have to. And you get into the issue about adoption agencies, where some of them limit who they'll place children with based on religious beliefs. And that's been supported, it's been rejected, it's been supported. So I'm not here to tell you that there's a clear through path on it. Right now, I would say it's being supported as opposed to rejected. When you see the most recent cases from the Supreme Court having to do with a Colorado law that was challenged on the basis that an individual who decorated wedding cakes did not want to decorate wedding cakes to support same-sex marriages. And the one that came up this year that was decided on free speech grounds, but basically the individual did not want to do wedding website designs that would assist people with same-sex marriages because that was contrary to her religious belief. And, you know, I can't tell you where this is all going to land, but there are some pushes and pulls on this because a lot of religious observances are very look into themselves and basically say, tolerance, leave me alone, I respect everyone. And others basically say, I can't associate with someone who doesn't support or fulfill my religious view of things. And I'm not singling out anybody in particular. In my own faith, there are some orthodoxies where a man will not sit next to a woman that he doesn't know, and wants the state to enforce that. Hopefully that will not be the status in the United States. But there are a number of religious observances that are like that. For those who want to be left alone, sometimes we have the situation where Horn and Cauldron wants to be left alone to peaceably practice their religion, and they get interference from the government. Now, it's not that long ago that it was recognized that religious organizations and religious observance is entitled to that level of protection. I mentioned the parochial schools. In a case that I did not that long ago on behalf of a young woman who was an atheist, who realized that there was our Holy Father prayer in the Cranston West High School. That was in the 2010s. When we examined how the hell did that happen, we found that maybe 30 years before that, they were still reciting the Lord's Prayer over the public address system every morning to the entire school. And that's not that long ago. It was only in the 60s and 70s that, of the 1900s, not the 1800s, that the courts recognized that mandatory prayer in the schools would not be permitted, and that individuals for whom standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, for example, was contrary to their religious practices, would not have to do so and should not be made to feel bad because they chose not to participate. Not that long ago. And then as that line of cases was making its way through the courts, it came to the U.S. Supreme Court. They put a couple of brakes on that were pretty significant. They said that that a neutral policy that interfered with religious practices could be enforced by the government, such as prohibiting a religious order that used peyote as part of their services, because that was a scheduled drug, that they could be denied public benefits. Interferes with religious exercise, that everyone thought was the case before these Supreme Court decisions. And then that was held to only apply to the federal government, so then they passed the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act that applies to state and local governments, but is much narrower in its application. It only benefits land use restrictions and institutionalized persons. And as I said, these kinds of laws and their application from the perspective of, I assume, a lot of people here, is basically leave me alone, let me do my, practice my religion without interference. But then you get into the situation where the RFRA has been used by business corporations that are not a religious order or religious organization, that say, even though I'm a publicly traded corporation, and of course I'm revealing my viewpoint on this, even though I'm a publicly traded corporation trying to make a profit, we have a religious bent that's against abortion and contraception, and we object to being required to provide Obamacare, or the equivalent of Obamacare, to our employees, and they won. So that is basically taking your religious beliefs and imposing them on other people. Now, in the area of employment, it is against the federal law, and most states have a comparable law, to discriminate in employment on the basis of religion. And you're required to provide an accommodation for the religious practice, which you would think would be, okay, I celebrate the Sabbath on a Saturday or a Sunday, don't make me do overtime that day. Back in, I think it was the 70s, the Supreme Court basically issued a decision that was interpreted to essentially say, sure, that's fine, but if it's any kind of the itty-bitty burden on the employer, even these large employers, they don't have to do it. Pretty much wrote it out of operation at the federal level. This year, they said to the lower courts, nah, you misread us. It's much more robust than that, which is a good thing, I hope. But what happens when you have an individual who says, my religion says that I cannot work next to this person over here who is married to somebody of the same gender? Jury's still out on that. Probably that is an unreasonable accommodation, but I can't tell you categorically that that's going to be the case. And so that's the same kind of analysis that has to do with public accommodations, going into stores, asking for services to be provided, and people also get creative if they want to make a point, which has certainly been the knock on the wedding website, that was a creation and not an actuality designed to get the case up to the Supreme Court, which had signaled that it was happy to hear it. So a lot of the issues are decided by the courts, which is where I am. So that's one of the things that, just to leave it on a higher note, I mean, if you look around the world, you will find many, many dictatorships, autocracies that have written into their constitution freedom of religion, freedom of the press. Don't try it at home. It doesn't really happen. People go to jail. We do have it here. You have to fight for it. It doesn't always work in a straight line, but we certainly have the right to speak our minds about what we think it should be, even if it's not delivered, and to try to get it changed by statute too. And that's, I think, all I wanted to tell you today. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them.